And now it's time for news from around the world, and meanwhile in the Arctic, that preview video has never been more appropriate. We are talking about polar bears, and they are in rough times, not just because of climate change, as you might think, but also because there's still trophy hunting. And we have award-winning wildlife photographer and conservationist Ole Leoden, who's been working for 4 years on a project to highlight the issues of polar bears, says that hunters are going around targeting the healthiest, strongest males for the most impressive trophies, which leaves only the weakest individuals to pass on their genes, while obviously simultaneously cutting down their numbers. He says we have to stop trophy hunting and the commercial skin trade. This is the only way that polar bears have a chance of survival in the future with global warming. Now, in terms of numbers, bear in mind nearly 9,000 polar bears were killed by hunters in the Arctic between 2007 and 2016, the most recent numbers. More than 50,000 have been killed since 1960. That is twice as many as today's entire remaining population. And with the numbers getting that low, we already have to look forward to climate change. The idea that in some parts of the Arctic, trophy hunting is still allowed, or at least officials look the other way, completely unacceptable. We are looking at a future that potentially has no polar bears, and that's no joke. Meanwhile in Greece, they've seen Donald Trump's border wall and they think, hey, that's cool, but what if it was in the ocean? They want to set up a 1.7-mile fence in the Aegean Sea off the Greek island of Lesbos within the next 3 months after they find a private contractor to build it. And for the same purpose as Trump's wall, they want to stop some of the inflow of migrants from across the Mediterranean. Give you an idea of how this is gonna function. 1.7 miles out at sea, pretty significant. It's a net-like barrier that's gonna rise 50 centimeters above the water and have flashing lights to make it visible at night. They're going to take a look at how it does, and if it's successful, they might add on to it to be up to 8 to 9 miles long, with the goal being of stopping small migrant-carrying boats from being able to get by. Now, that's their plan. The plan is stop them from getting by, but think about that. People crowd onto these tiny little boats. This is their last chance to get across. They cross the Mediterranean in horrific conditions and then hit a fence that stops them. What happens after that? This isn't a cruise. They're not stocked up for months at sea. Best case scenario, they can go back across the Mediterranean to Africa. Many will probably die on that trip, if anyone survives at all. This is a situation that is explicitly setting up the mass murder of migrants trying to get into Europe. Nikos Panagiotopoulos, the country's defense minister, said it would act as a natural barrier, but it's not a natural barrier, it's an unnatural barrier that you are setting up. What a weird way to twist reality there. And bear in mind, nearly 60,000 migrants and refugees made the crossing to the islands off Greece, nearly double recorded in 2018. So it is an issue. Letting them all die at sea, not the solution. Meanwhile in Mexico, specifically right near the border with California, take a look at this little video. Look at that creepy little tunnel. What's that? And what's that weird beeping? Well, what you're seeing there is a more than 4,300 foot tunnel across the border, the longest ever found. It was just discovered. It has a lift, a rail track, drainage and air ventilation systems, high voltage electrical cables. Everything you need is gonna be in that tunnel. No, okay, so it's still obviously very rough to transition through there. And it was being hidden. Apparently, like investigators were getting close, there was fear it would be discovered, so hundreds of sandbags had been piled up to stop people from getting in. No arrests have been made, no drugs were found, and we don't know who exactly was operating it, although this is an area where the Sinaloa cartel operates, so it's possible that they had set it up, or at least co-opted it after it being constructed. Take a look at this map. To give you an idea, a more than 4,300 foot tunnel, 70 feet below the surface, 5 feet tall, 2 feet wide, that is a significant undertaking. And it's a reality of the situation, which again makes the idea that we're just going to wall off the entire border so ridiculous. Look at the lengths that people are willing to go to get by. Although honestly, sometimes you don't even need a 4,300 foot tunnel. Take a look at this video. Yeah, that's the wall falling over. You know why? Because of wind, which happens. That's Trump's wall. Ridiculous. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.